welcome everyone. Today I will talk to you about adventure skills. I am Käthy Rannaste, eli Phoenix. And what to expect? First of all, I will explain why I chose this very specific topic, and then I will give you an overview of guilds and who work in guilds. And of course, I will sprinkle in some Japanese facts, because otherwise it wouldn't be any point to having this lecture. And also, I will give you recommendations. So it all started when last year I watched a specific anime about a receptionist who seemed as overworked as I felt at that point. And that made me think that there's a big gap between the world the receptionist exists in and the world she works in. Outside Adventures Guild, it's mostly rural areas. Sometimes you have some reincarnated weirdos like saws that speak or vending machines. And you have a lot of children taking part of the workforce. And of course, most people are dirt poor, except if you're a noble. And literacy and being able to do basic arithmetics, for example, that is also something reserved for people who are of noble status. And of course, the world is full of monsters, of whom some of them may be the main character. For example, there's many isekais with skeleton people. But at the same time, inside the guild, you have pretty ladies in flight attendant outfits. You have the latest office tech, for example, lead pencils and erasers. That's not something you would expect to see in a fantasy setting. You would expect quills and such things. And then, of course, you have your pretty girls with unimaginable amounts of cash, or gold to be exact. And then, of course, the guild makes office jobs actually respectable in a world where a manly man has to be very manly, but there he can just do documents. And of course, it has work regulations, and most guilds are multi-service business models, as in you will go there, you can sell your stuff, you can go have a pint, you can sleep there, you can even get matchmaked. So where do the Adventures Guild concept, where does it come from? Well, it started already in the previous century through books where thieves' guilds and other similar concepts started to appear, but it wasn't until the 70s when tabletop games like D&D started to professionalize heroes. So you would have a place where they can go and be like, yes, I am unemployed, I need a job, and they're like, of course, here is your contract, go do your stuff. And it had a hint of American Wild West in the sense that brave adventurers go outside in a unknown world to conquer beasts and, so to say, some little bit of racist things as well. But it sold the dream. And from the 80s onwards, they started to appear in video games. For example, Bard's Tale, Final Fantasy, Dragon Quest. A lot of Japanese game developers were very interested in the Adventures Guild concept. First of all, because they were huge nerds. They really liked Dungeons and Dragons. And second of all, the guild concept was attractive in the sense that it was a structured system, and you could, so to say, have civil servant exams and other things that were very sexy. And from the last decade onwards, there has been a boom in anime and manga. Why do anime and manga use guilds? It's because it provides a simple framework to introduce lore and new mechanics. And also, as mentioned, it allows for progressive, like structured progression through exams and other feats. It also acts as a convenient plot device, because if you have no idea how to put this character and this character together, then it's easy. Just say that they ended up working as co-workers. And of course, it allows for celebrating with the lads, which is a must for every isekai series, because you can't have the last episode without them eating and drinking. And Adventures Guild has diverse business models. Some of them are basically charity, while others are more like the black companies. The charity companies, they might offer free training for newbies. Some of them might take do some of the money you earn from your quest, but they will invest that into making the guild services better, offering first aid or something like that. Then there's some that are more capitalistic minded. They're like, you perform well, so we're going to give you some benefits, but you keep working for us. And then there are some that will treat anyone who is not an executive, so a top level person, as trash, which might be familiar to some people working as, let's say, cleaners or something like that. And the funding comes from different places as well. Some of them are largely government funded, which also means that they are underfunded sometimes because nobles don't believe in things that are not noble. They might use a mixture of funding, so to say, private persons will give quests out, but then the government is like, we need a quest as well, so they try to get someone to do the government's work. Usually no one wants to do it. Then there's guilds that try to avoid government funding because that means that the nobles will say that you have to do this or that. And some guilds just have money to throw at the main character who just brings in corpses after corpses of mythological beings. And funding also is rated on whether they are independent or reliant. The plus about being a governmental institution is that you will have good interoperability across the nation, but same can be reached with, so to say, international conglomerates. You would also get, so to say, large-scale operations through that, and you can also have strategic partnerships. For example, in this manga, you can't become an adventurer unless you do your military service. That sounds a little bit Korean, but it's there. And some of them that are more like partner with the government, they try to keep their level high because otherwise the government will be like, we're gonna, so to say, quit your contract because you don't perform well. And some of them are cross-continental organizations. This is a Merchants Guild, but there wasn't any good screenshots for the Adventurers Guild. And some of them partner up with merchants guilds, appraisals guilds, or any other kind of guild. And the relationship with adventurers it goes beyond customer service, as in some of them are more like author and publisher. So if the author is shit, the publisher will be like, but we better cut you off. If the author does well, they're like, keep it rolling. The same can be seen in some of some mangas. Then there are some that treat adventurers as a valuable resource. They are not employees, but it's a mixture of it's a good tool and a good customer. So they have customer retention programs. And some just decide that adventurers are employees without an official contract. So they say that you can't take your vacation, but there legally isn't any reason that you can't take your vacation, but they make it seem like you can't take your vacation. And personally, I mostly see adventures like this. They just stand at the quest board, they're like, something good. And when the something good opens, then they just run at the board. What services do guilds offer? First of all, quest mediation. So you post your quest, you take it, you do your paperwork, and then you get money. Of course, you have to fill the quest as well. They might give penalties if you don't do your quest or you fail it. Then you have diagnostics, as in if you don't have your magical computer game stat screen, then the receptionist will have the stat screen. They also sell things, for example, bear traps. If you decide that there's a karhu somewhere and you need traps, or you can sell anything you have and they agree to buy. They act as an information center, so if you want to know about something about the beast you're going to kill or the enemies that you have to capture, you just Google it and ask the receptionist. They also handle promotion exams, entrance exams, so it's the bureaucratic part of getting your papers correct. They deal with identification and documents. You can give your magical fingerprints there. For some reason, they have written contracts, even though most of the adventurers who will come in won't be able to write anything. So basically the receptionist will write for you, so you don't know what they're writing about you. And identification is also needed. If you happen to die in the dungeon, they can identify your corpse. So there's a lot of stuff happening. And they provide education and training. Usually it can be free, it can be paid, it can be like nice training that you is more like in a private company, or it can be a training as in the bad PE memories you try to forget. They offer appraisal services. It's mostly middle-aged dudes with the tiny glasses going like, oh, truly incredible, it's shiny. You have magic-based cloud services because for some reason everyone knows your stats even if you go to another country. Sometimes the cloud doesn't work because it gets attacked by cyber criminals or something, so your information doesn't record. You have to pay 5 silvers again to record yourself. They have specialized butchering services because if you kill something unknown, then I personally wouldn't be able to skin this thing. I am pretty sure that most of them don't know either by the looks of it. They also offer food and entertainment because the guild is basically a tavern by this point. Temporary housing, emphasis on temporary. If they decide that you are a very nice adventurer, then they want to have you as an employee, so they have to make sure you are somewhere close by. They offer rehabilitation services, which I have seen in, I think, 1 or 2 series. So if your leg gets blown off, but the guild says that you are still useful, they will give you or grow you another leg. And of course, first aid and field hospitals, because if there's a big event happening, let's say 20 wyverns attack the town, then some people are going to get a little bit filled with holes. And of course, there's banking and currency exchange, especially if the guild is an international company. Then you don't have to carry all the big sacks of gold you got for bringing in tons and tons of corpses. You just give it to the receptionist and it's on your card. There's also charity programs. If you decide that you don't want the big bags of gold on your own account, you can just give them away. And one interesting concept in some series is they have communal workspaces. So let's say if you want to butcher the things on your own because you don't have money to pay professional butchers, they have communal areas where you take turns to dismantle your things. Or they have big tables where everyone can solve puzzles, dungeon puzzles, for example, which I think it reminds me of the big Robecon puzzle. Also, they offer legal advice, but that advice is more like don't do it, ho. So you take it at your own risk. And some series have real estate services because if the guild finds a good party, then they really want to keep them in their area instead of going to the other branch. And platonic matchmaking, which was also a thing. Let's say you are a greenhorn, you don't know anyone, you just go like, yes, I have a sword, I can swing it at things, please find me friends. And then the receptionist is like, okay, I will post that John wants to meet someone. And hopefully John will meet someone. And the most interesting thing was prayer spaces. Like one manga had a big rock that everyone prayed towards, and the guild decided we're going to take a piece of that rock and put it in our own office, so adventurers can go like, ah yes, please rock, make sure I don't die. So we have a lot of different tasks. The question is, who is responsible for those tasks? There's a lot of support staff and back office people, but mostly they deal with tasks that are invisible. So you have the waitresses, for example, you have the IT dudes. I assume they are basically like IT dudes. You sometimes see them in the background between bookshelves. Guildmasters, they also do some things, and depending on the series, some guildmasters don't do anything besides flexing, and others do a lot of work. Instructors can also have different tasks, and they can intersect with different roles. For example, it is in multiple series, the guildmaster is the instructor, but you don't know it until the instructor decides that yes, you may join us, and then it's like, oh yes, you beat the guildmaster. They also employ merchants, which can be not like guild workers, but separate people, so from the outside. Then there's appraisers, who of course do appraisals. Butchers, who of course do butchering, and they might give you a good cut of your, let's say, cockatrice. And of course receptionists, because the only thing I did not find any evidence is them dealing with the prayer spaces, because that was a very specific manga. But everything else, they do it. So, support staff. Usually, as I said, they are back office employees, and usually you see many more men in that role than, for example, among receptionists. And those professions can include dungeon rescuers, if you need to get someone out of the dungeon, dungeon patrollers, if you need to keep someone in the dungeon, and dungeon destroyers, if you decide no more dungeon. I forgot to click. But yeah, examples. Guildmasters. Usually they differ mostly on flavor level. You have your Scruffy, you have your Legolas, you have your old grandpa, and the guildmaster usually employs the lifetime employment concept, as in they are from the same guild, they have been in the guild since they were 15, they have risen up in the ranks, and decided that yes, I will be a guildmaster now. And there's many flavors of guildmasters. You have Legolas adjacent. They look pretty, but personality does not have to match the looks. You have tired uncles. If you met them on the street, you wouldn't be like, oh, that's a guildmaster. You're like, I hope that man has a good wife or everything is okay at home. Then you have swole gilfs. The gilfs stand for grandfather I'd love to fight. And some of them are actually competent, but others just spend all of the time pumping muscles. The competent one, in my opinion, is the middle one. Especially the right-hand one, I haven't seen him do anything. You have big promotion money. You see them, but they don't do much. If they do something, it's mostly paperwork. But they have fur-trimmed capes, they have jewelry. But their history is, of course, we're craftsmen, we don't have jewelry. Then there's the gold-trimmed jacket thing. For some reason many guildmasters have that same jacket. They probably get it from the same store or something. And you have well-endowed ladies. I did not find so far, with lesser badonkadonks, any guildmasters. And you may also have noticed that there were very few women among guildmasters. That's also something from real life, because there's the higher managerial positions are usually occupied by men. both in private corporations as seen here, as well as in public services. And Japan is a good example of there not being many women in parliament, for example. And I give you examples of who I think are responsible guildmasters. You have Lionel, who will actually do work. He will go and do some recon. And he understands that most of his employees are not experienced adventurers, so he does the work himself, even if it means that he has to go and fight a lot of enemies. And another, I'm not sure he had a name, so I will just call him Guildmaster, but he is actually at least having the physical symptoms of being overworked, so bald spots and grey hair, and headaches and probably stomach problems. And his receptionist, who is actually a dude, at the bottom right corner, they are both very overworked. So there's also alternatives. If you don't want to have a single dude at the head of the guild, you can have a high council, for example. This could lead to a more balanced, so to say, system. But usually it slows things down a lot and introduces corruption. For example, this series, I think it was the Jack of all trades, something long title. They need to evacuate an entire dungeon. So of course someone says, we need to have a meeting about this. Then they start the meeting and they're like, now we will cover the topics of said teleportation. And then they play, so to say, table hockey for the entire episode, and everyone evacuates themselves. And I don't know what happened with the teleportation circle, so I guess they will continue it in the next meeting. Instructors. Instructors usually are very high level. They are, so to say, near legendary. They have cringy nicknames like, let's say, the Sharp Tornado, the Big Muscle Mass, or something like that. The exception is all kinds of initiation exam instructors, because they can be like Mr. Mossman, top left corner, who has worked the position of Mr. Mossman for probably 5 decades, and the job entails taking a little rake and going like whoop, whoop, whoop off the walls to like get the moss off, and teach the children to go like whoop, 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 and say like, yes, you are good enough to join the adventurers. And instructors can serve as a goal, so you strive towards becoming Mr. Musclemass or the Sharp Tornado, or they are a convenient tool to show that, yes, the main character is very OP and they can just whoop, defeat the biggest, baddest instructor ever. Merchants. They are often partners, not actual employees. They deal directly with the guild instead of the adventurers. But sometimes they offer the services to the adventurers as well, and then it's more distinct from the guild appraisals. They may cooperate closely with the guild on larger projects. So let's say that if the main character introduces the concept of metro to the entire fantasy world, so the merchants are like, I like that idea, and the adventure skill is like, oh no, they like that idea, so they have to actually go through with building a metro. And the Merchants Guild might also uses similar concepts as the Adventurers Guild, so they might have exams which involve knowing what is, for example, 3 plus 2, basic arithmetics. And usually, for some reason, the Merchants Guild has a lot of high-level women compared to Adventurers Guild. Appraisers. It's seen mostly as a lot more prestigious job, because at least receptionists would like to be appraisers, but appraisers like, no, girl, we don't need you. And they have several specializations, so you might have someone who is very at home with monsters, some who are very at home with art. Butchers. They offer an invaluable service, as in as mentioned earlier, if you get a cockatrice, you won't know which end to start with. Especially if you have a poisonous animal, you will probably poison yourself. That's like making, was it the fugu fish? Anyway, trying to make exotic foods on your own. It's usually dominated by men, except in Kuma 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 Bear, where one of the, should say, main side characters specializes in butchery, and the guild gives her freelance work to be a butcher. And they also offer high quality services, so they might also instruct the adventurers on how to dismantle basic monsters, and they might handle the, so to say, more advanced material themselves for a fee. The butchers have a steady stream of work, so the overtime danger is usually when the main character decides to open up their magic bag and produce a lot of materials. But if such an event happens, the butchers can be like, guildmaster, there's too much work, please hire someone new. And of course the guildmaster's like, dude, I've got you. And suddenly you have a recovery team to get that dragon from the other end of the map to the guild and dismantle it in a day. Nani? Yes, so this is a situation where there might be a little bit of overtime, but the guildmaster will help. And you need training, knowledge, and the right tools to butcher, because as in the campfire cooking isekai, the butcher mentions that unlicensed ones, so the freelancers, they can just do a sloppy work. They don't have the guild backing up that, yes, he knows how to handle his meat. And if you bring your cockatrice to the food butcher in the village, then he's like, yes, just pluck it all off, chop it off, make goulash. So you won't have any valuable materials left. And some butchers actually have high-tech facilities. For example, from the Unwanted Undead Adventurer, they have a facility equipped with poison filtering systems, a big area with splash screens. So if you bring your very big poisonous monster, it will be safe, and the working environment is according to standard. Okay, receptionists. They are the backbone of all guilds. They are multi-talented, overworked, and underpaid. Sounds like nurses and teachers. Let's start with the uniforms, because I promised to show uniforms. Usually, so far what I've seen, with the exception being from Konosuba Luna, she has her badonkas very, very wide out. Most other receptionists usually cover the badonkas. They are very big usually, but they're covered. Not so much with the legs. The legs are usually there for all to see, but that can be excused because they're usually behind the desk, so no one sees the big legs. And the style varies a lot. Sometimes you get normal office wear. I'm glad to see normal office wear. And the others can range from historical milkmaids to Harry Potter, some school uniforms, and then there's some unexplainable styles that have like mini skirts, but at the same time it says military. And mainly young women are seen as receptionists, but it can also feature cats, androids, non-humans, and even rarely some dudes. And receptionist, the trope follows Japanese employment trends, where women tend to quit regular employment, so full-time work, for example, after they become of like 30 or something, so when they have kids. And they might rejoin the workforce, but then they are usually, let's say, part-timers. And some series, like The Great Cleric, has a good example where two receptionists get married, and the entire guild is like, okay, we have to finish everything, because if those two ladies go away, it's done for. They are not coming back ever. And the adventurers also will feel like, oh no, the only person who was sane in this guild is going to marry off to John. And some receptionists go to the guild to so to say spend time until they're 30 and they can marry someone rich. The bad side of everything a receptionist is that they suffer a huge amount of verbal abuse as well as sexual harassment. The favorite word is so to say adjective and bitch. And that starts off very early. They are usually not encouraged to respond to it. So if someone is like, yes, girl, would you like to go on a date into the tavern, basically around the corner inside the guild, then you're like, have you seen our new product? You can't say anything else. And if they don't want to buy the product, then you have to be like, yes, John, you are such a strong man. Would you like this quest? And then John is very distractible. However, if they decide to file a complaint, it would just create more work for the receptionist. Sometimes they will have their revenge. So if John just keeps on annoying the receptionist, then they can do things like bill them, not give good quests, and other things that are, so to say, semi-legal. Receptionists, in my opinion, are often overqualified. They can be high-ranked adventurers. They can go like very high up until at some point they hit 30 and they decide that I don't want to marry, I will become a guild receptionist. And the guild experience, like the adventurer experience, will be a boon for the receptionist work. Also, many guilds require for the receptionists to have a good previous education. They need to be trained in many areas. For example, in this particular manga, you have to finish basically the MIT of the wizarding world to work as a receptionist who gets paid basically as much as a little cashier. And even if you get to be a receptionist, it's continuous education. You have to go to trainings, and it's usually not very nice training because you still have to work. So that's why mostly receptionists are either very passionate individuals, they are there for life, they will quit when either they really, really love someone or when they are in the coffin. But some of them, for example, this girl, are there just to spend time until the right John happens to stumble into their guild office. And initially, a receptionist job might seem simple. You just wear a cute uniform, you say, yes, please visit us again. But they have a lot of additional tasks, such as they can take up all the roles that were shown earlier. They can appraise and butcher any monsters. They have to do graphic design. They have to know how office things work. They need to be able to appraise. And in the Leadale anime, the receptionist actually has magical eyeballs just to appraise things. They need to barter. They need to conduct investigations and then take appropriate actions, even if it means that they might be in danger later. They can act as part librarian because some guilds offer book loaning services, but the books can't be taken out of the guild. They have to know everything, so they are basically Google search engine. They do laundry. They have to maintain a perfect poker face because most of the main characters that end up in the guild office will make you want to either scream or just quit your job. But you can't do that. Then they have to play high-stakes strategy game with adventures, because the guildmaster is not going to do anything when the 20 wyverns attack the town. So the receptionist has to go like, yes, I know that our S-ranked John is in another county, and we have 2 F-ranked people here. How do I make it work? Okay, I will phone Jonathan, for example. They have to do such things on top of their head. They have to act as unlicensed healthcare professionals, because after you send your 10 F-ranked people to attack the Wyverns, they come back. You have to make sure you still have those 10 F-ranked adventures later. You have to know advanced arithmetics, finance skills, and literacy in a world where those things are reserved for only nobles, and no noble is going to become a receptionist. You have to be a real estate agent, because if the guildmaster says keep that party in our guild, you have to make sure you find a good building that has a hot tub, a big kitchen, has separate bedrooms for all the party members. You have to clean before work, after the 10 F-ranked adventures are patched up and left all the blood over the floor. You have to clean, because sometimes you get, so to say, assholes, and you have to bonk them on the head and then dispose of the evidence. So they do a lot of invisible work and without compensation compared to other guild members. And what's more, most of the series I have seen, it's you have a single receptionist taking all the brunt of the adventurers, so the frustration, even if you have a lot of back office people, but they don't dare to look what's happening in front of the desk. And especially in rural regions, you will have a single person managing the entire thing. You won't even have a guild master, because it's a branch office in somewhere in the sticks. So sometimes you will get a video call via magical ball that, yes, it's difficult to recruit new employees, because would you like to work as a receptionist after this? No, you would not. Even especially because you need to have skills on par with some very prestigious and high positions, such as royal knights or something, but you don't get paid for it. Yes, as said, the pay is worse, so everyone after school goes to become a knight. And it's dangerous to work as a receptionist, because for some reason most guild registrations involve blood, and I work with blood in my job. I get vaccinated. I'm not sure receptionists get vaccinated for blood-borne viruses and other diseases. Also many series for some reason don't have any chairs behind the desk, so the poor lady has to stand there for at least 12 hours because there's no one else to take the shift. Some do have chairs, but it's some. And of course, there's a lack of safety barriers. Only one series, the Unwanted Undead Adventure, had, so to say, safety screens. Think COVID time, but made of iron. And of course, there's unstable customers everywhere. So they are burnt out because they work long hours with night shifts. It's high stakes because, as I said, you have to decide whether to dispose of the 10 F-ranked adventurers or to get Jonathan from somewhere. You're constantly exposed to trauma because the 10 F-ranked adventurers got stabbed with Wyvern spikes or something. And it's poorly organized because you are the one that's organizing. Yes, and for example, they have to do recon, so you can't post a quest until you figure out what's wrong, so you have to go to the forest to see that, yes, there's 2 calamity-ranked monsters here. Okay, I will write it on my graphic design. Graphic design is my passion sheet. Yes, long nights. Boop. There are some benefits. For example, the guild might provide you housing. You might get high-tech uniforms that might act as armor. And you might be given paid care leave, but not to care for your own children, because you don't have children, because you're just at the work all the times, but you can care for either your little sibling, because you either have a little sibling, or your love interest who turned into a baby for the day. So, Japanese culture in my guild, more likely than you think. Lifetime employment, that is used with receptionists because they are rarely fired, because you can't fire them, because then there will be no one in the guild. And they are trained broadly because they have many tasks to fulfill. They are provided with housing and so to say support. So that's one of the reasons some receptionists might join the guild. There's also guild entrance exams, which are similar to simultaneous recruiting of new graduates, as in it's entry level. You don't need any prior work experience. You can be 6 years old, and they will hire you. Guild cards use the meishikokan thing where you, so to say, very politely present it. But there are also exceptions where they throw it at you, as well as the thing you had to prick your finger with to get blood everywhere. Whew. And with money, they watashi, so also you use 2 hands to give it on a coin tray. Sometimes when you don't have a coin tray, you still give it with 2 hands. There is a senpai kohai dynamic present, both with the employees as well as the adventurers. And nomikai, so because if you work as a receptionist, you need to vent your frustration somewhere. You can't do it in the guild, so you do it in the tavern next door. Exploitation, child exploitation is quite rare, because they either have age requirements, high skill requirements, so if the baby can defeat all your S-ranked adventures, then they're probably more qualified. Or you need a guardian, so if you have an adult with you, your 3-year-old can become an adventurer. There's quest limitations and guided guild initiation, so Mossman can teach you how to go like whoop, whoop, whoop. But it has to be noted that 15 is usually considered to be adult in most series, so 15 is not an adult in our world. Yes, these 2 children are the ones that had a guardian with them, and the receptionist went like, "Are you sure you wanted these 2 to be adventurers?" Dude was like, yes. And this manga had an entire festival for getting... So basically, instead of sending your kid to primary school, you send them to become an adventurer in another city. And confidentiality, it does not exist. Or does it? Some guilds take it very seriously. That means it usually also involves breaking confidentiality, but at least they try. Recommendations in the last 2 minutes. The Unwanted Undead Adventurer, I highly recommend it. It has biblically accurate dragons. The guild is very competent. It has a very hard-working receptionist. As you can see, he turns into a skeleton in the first episode. And also, it has the seal of approval by my dad. Then we have the Beast King, Master of Medicines. It has a very puff-looking lion who has to deal with humans, because humans will try to destroy the environment even when they are not on planet Earth. The guild system is a little bit corrupt, but they have a, so to say, guild council, so that's something interesting. Yes. And the art is very nice. Boop. Whoop. My daughter left the nest and returned an S-rank adventure. That is an example of the guild trying to tell you that you are an employee, but there is no official contract with you, so you could go home, girl, but the girl doesn't know that. I do like the guild master there. He's the responsible one in the examples earlier. Lionel is a wet noodle, but I like him. This is Lionel. He even feels bad for making you do stuff. And I may be a guild receptionist, but I'll solo any boss to clock out. This is the reason why we are here. I feel that series in my bones. I don't care about actual fighting even. I just live for the moments they are inside the guild. Whew. Yes. No, basically, I subscribe to this thinking. If it gives me overtime, I don't want to do it, but I still have to do it. Joo. This is me a lot of the times when summer vacations start and most of the co-workers are on vacation. You just have to do it. Oh, lopeta. Okay, last series. I want to be actually wrong. But this manga is also very nice. That's the one where the girl graduates MIT of magic to become a receptionist. She at first feels like, oh yes, I'm giving the night shift, that's so nice, but probably 2 years in the future she'll be like, no night shift. Yeah, sparkling eyes. Then my little sibling's contribution, Genshin Impact. So apparently Catherine tolerates no disrespect. She's everywhere. Embrace our new AI overlord. Thank you for listening.